nice.
Which we can do is like if it's going to CT scanner, because he's gonna it's like
so many weird things. Because you had an EF of like 30%.
Yes.
So that's both hypotension, so it's like cardiomyopathy.
That's why I was like,
wow, yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
that was just like,
In terms of the
they supplied like
PE,
dinner.
it wasn't doing anything to
they were little, they were like
Yeah, it's gonna be way more.
But then he's got this massive, his initial test of E wasn't that bad in terms of inflammation, and then the next day it blew up. So then
Oh, really?
it went all into the effect. Yeah, so they put a pigtail in, which actually goes well in the first.
Like it? The only thing I don't like is
So yeah, me, for the individual case,
cardiology notes.
that's not
But it helps you like.
those are tough to put in there because the kids are super confusing and they're all different. And the one that I put in before is not the same kid that they had. I tried to put one in P's, and the brothers. C. Not Chinese, not Chinese, not C, the other one. Those are friends, C and then I was you just have to like one word and unlock it and everyone's like, no, in any case, he and I were trying to register the 17-year-old and he never used either. And I mean, what happened is we accidentally found out later. The other day, he tried to like sneak up on me and be like, hey! Except I could smell it before I could see him, so I was like, I knew you were back. And then I can't
I got my
take the tube car out of the tube. Like this kid's on ketamine, and we're just like, I got like, I'm basically like a foot on bed trying to pull this thing out. Where's my ear? Like, I couldn't figure this stroke car out. Yeah.
I got his stand, I got the dilator in, but first he handed me a dilator that was too short. So then we lost it, and again, but then freaking tube in when I was taking the wire to a stop. Then he tried to take the wire. Then he tried again. But he didn't know what to do with the tube. So he freaked out. He called the anesthesia repair. And then police came. And he just paused it. And he went to the ultrasound. Like, alright, this is the biggest complicated. Let's go here.
internal storage.
So I was like,
Oh, when did you get back?
because he just, I found out at that moment, he didn't even know what to do.
There's something in America called
Really starts like
That's the thing we couldn't unlock it. Anyway, that's okay, I have the perfect jacket.
like a Saudi
Yeah.
We have a special lecture this morning at 8 o'clock. So everyone give a big hand to Kruthi. Are you doing a lecture at 8 o'clock?
Notice the pause there.
Aren't you doing 8 o'clock or no? That's what Dr. Green said.
All right,
Someone sent out an itinerary.
All right.
See, again with the collars, we get too high though. See, I need to find a nice team.
Supposed to pop your collar anyway.
You see the screen from back there?
You are a third year.
Yeah, I just hold on, I got
My mother just keep looking up.
Yeah, right, my monocle.
One.
That was gag monocle. You just pull it out.
It smells a little bit better.
I mean,
I think it's like, call
go ahead.
No, I haven't had it in case I had one in the ICU. So.
Use the microphone.
I hate the microphone.
Thank you.
He's a 24-year-old male with a history of heroin use, and he was found down for an unknown amount of time by his family. He was given 2 milligrams of Narcan and then was apparently moving around, but not purposefully. He was given 2 more milligrams of Narcan at Lima and didn't really do much, so he was tubed. He had a pH of 6.9 and was in rhabdo, elevated lactate, AKI, and hypothermia with an initial temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. Supposedly a chest x-ray showed aspiration. And this was like in August too, so like a temperature of 30 degrees was like kind of impressive. He had a temperature catheter placed in his right groin and then was on a bicarb drip en route. They sedated and paralyzed him before he came in, and flight crew said that he was requiring increased vent settings during flight, so.
It required what?
Increased vent settings. So this was the physical that I initially put in my H&P. Relevant, his temperature was fixed.
Hey, Kruthi, he's only saying 85% on the vent.
Yes, that's the relevant part. His blood pressure was a touch low, and he was only satting 85% with an impressive vent setting of PEEP of 16, pressure control of 18, which means his peak pressure was like 34. FiO2 of 100%, I time of 1.5, which you can't really go up on that too much, and respiratory rate of 22. So, let's start with the interns. What would you do with this patient that came in, was requiring increased vent settings? Something's wrong. How are you going to try and fix it?
As far as something he's not satting, check the position of the tube.
Yep, that's a good one. Anything else? There's a mnemonic that I use.
Dope.
Dopes, yeah. Go through it for us.
Obstruction.
Equipment failure.
Equipment failure, yeah. So we fixed that. We switched them from the flight vent to our vent. Didn't really seem to do much. And while we did it, we did have to disconnect the tube for a little while, so we didn't have like a big exhalation from all the breath stacking or anything. So those 2 were out of there. Obstruction and position. How are you checking those?
Sorry.
Chest x-ray, or easier things, just an end tidal CO2. This was fine. And then obstruction, we were able to pass the suction catheter all the way down the tube. So at least the ET tube appeared to be clear. And what is the last one in dopes? No, we already tried equipment. What's the P? Pneumothorax. So how are you going to check for pneumothorax? You called x-ray, and this is like what actually happened. We called x-ray, and they were like, yeah, it's going to be like 15, 20 minutes. What is another way we could use to diagnose a pneumothorax?
Just listen to them.
Listen to the heart, or to the lungs. That's really good. And then, ultrasound. And in this case, we knew this guy aspirated, so there is also a chance that if we ruled out all of these, he just had really bad ARDS. I mean, we had another case who actually was like this and just had really bad ARDS. So this was his ABG. We managed to get an ABG before a chest x-ray. We actually placed an art line before we managed to get a chest x-ray because that's how long it took me to get up there. So yeah, his PO2 is only 55 despite his settings. And then this was his, not his ultrasound, but a ultrasound.
25 milligrams and 2.5 mils. From the law, it's just, and 2.5 mils, how much do you want? You want 2 ounces?
No, just 10 milligrams.
So what are you looking for to diagnose a pneumothorax on an ultrasound?
Lack of lung sliding.
Lack of lung sliding. And then anything else?
See A lines there too with the lack of lung slide.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it.
And then the barcode sign instead of the seashore. But what else can cause a lack of lung sliding? Is that specific for a pneumothorax?
Previous surgeries.
Previous surgeries, so like adhesions from previous surgeries. What else would cause the lung not really to move much?
Consolidation, maybe. Consolidation.
Consolidation.
Consolidation, yep.
Restrictive lung diseases, like.
So,
You don't know that.
just stop looking. So yeah, absence of lung sliding is very sensitive, but not that specific. So ARDS patients can be, just because their lungs are so stiff from the ARDS physiology, they will not necessarily always have lung sliding. Severe pneumonia, atelectasis, adhesions, if you injured or have a palsy of your phrenic nerve. And then obviously, the most important one is user error. If you're not that confident in your ultrasound skills, you're probably not going to rely on your ultrasound to diagnose a pneumothorax. And then those are the other ones, absence of B lines, and then presence of A lines is usually goes hand in hand, and then barcode sign in the M mode. So we saw this ultrasound we actually did on both lungs, and both sides didn't look like they had any lung sliding. So any discussion of what you would do? This guy is still satting, his blood pressure is a little bit touchy, but like hanging in there, and then his still like consistently satting 85%. We can't manage to get him up above that. X-ray still says they're on the way.
Where was the pneumonia? Right or left?
It was aspiration, and we didn't get a chance to look at the chest X-ray until after like 8 hours or something like that. So
You have a chest
his
X-ray?
original chest X-ray from Lima, because the chest X-ray here was they were still like 15 minutes away.
I'm not sure if that helps usually, but sometimes they turn the patient to the side, the good side of the lung that doesn't have the consolidation or pneumonia or something over the pathology, but that will help the oxygenation.
Well, my question is, this patient in flight, so like apparently was doing fine over at Lima, in flight was requiring like massive amounts of changes in his vent settings, and he has this on his ultrasound. Would you do anything about it without getting a chest X-ray? Because like I said, this kid sat around for like probably 30 to 40 minutes before we actually did anything about it, because we got a chest X-ray.
What about?
Would you do anything before the chest X,
What
or
about
before
beside
the chest
echo?
X-ray came in?
Beside echo, is there any sign of PE?
No.
No?
Bilateral needles?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That could have been something easily done. We didn't do that, however. We waited for a chest X-ray. And then short little thing on needles versus finger thoracostomy. Traditionally use needles, but you almost can never find the correct size IV catheter. You want it to be a 14 gauge or below and at least 2 inches. And you can either go mid-clavicular line, second intercostal space, or where you normally would start putting in a chest tube, 4th or 5th intercostal space, mid-axillary. And traditional teaching was that if you put in a needle, even if you don't know if there was a pneumothorax, you're going to have to put in a chest tube because you either damaged lung parenchyma or there is a tension pneumothorax because the lung should be up there. So that's why some people recommend that you put in a finger, which is basically just like doing the first part of a chest tube without putting the chest tube in there. You just cut open, dig around, and get into the lung cavity, open it up, and then try and get the pneumothorax to resolve. Other issues with the needle is sometimes the catheter isn't stiff enough and kinks. This is a problem in pre-hospital, usually less of a problem if you're already in the ICU. And providers often underestimate the length of the clavicle, so they go too medial, and so you can damage great vessels. But the issues with finger thoracostomy is that it's probably going to take a little bit longer. You probably want to get some sterile gloves, put some like iodine on there and stuff. And then some people say either way, you probably still need to get a chest x-ray. Some people say that a needle doesn't necessarily buy you a chest tube. Get a chest x-ray and if they're stable enough, and you might not end up having to put one. So anyway, this was his chest x-ray.
Nice.
Would you say, so this is a big tension pneumothorax, right? His heart and like mediastinum is shifted to the left. So at this point, we decided we needed to put in a chest tube. And this is how that went. The other resident did this, it wasn't me. I just want everyone to know that. He attempted a 28 French tube, but he was like, he got it in, and then he was like trying to suture it out, and then it slid out. So then we couldn't find any more 28 French tubes, so we attempted a 30 French tube, and he was like, yeah, it went in, it was great. And he was still satting at 85%, and we like didn't fix him at all. So obviously we got another chest x-ray.
That's so cute. Yeah.
There we go. He made it worse.
It's where it's supposed to be normal.
I mean, he has sub-Q air, but you will often get that when you're placing a chest tube. That's not the big issue. The big issue is that if you look at the previous x-ray, his upper lobe was completely expanded. And then now, he's definitely got like a gap there, so he like broke his upper lobe too. And the chest tube obviously was not put in high enough. And I watched him put it in. I don't think he was like really directing it much. He was just kind of like stuffing it in. But then our attending was just like, fine, I'm putting in another one. So he put in a 34 French tube. He felt some slight resistance and then just stopped. So it was only advanced about 10 centimeters from the skin in. And then he said he could feel the other tube in the lung parenchyma. But his stats increased to 99%. And then we actually were able to like switch around his vent. Although his x-ray does look better, it still doesn't look great, but actually he started to improve in terms of like his pressures went down. We were able to like wean off the vent a little bit. He still, as you can see, has like aspiration and ARDS, so like he still was requiring higher vent settings, but it wasn't nearly as bad as when he first came in. These were his initial labs, which are not really relevant much to this case, but he was in rhabdo, and apparently they did a great job resuscitating him. His AKI was getting better, his lactate was resolved, his lactic acidosis had resolved. The only other thing I do note about this one is that he had elevated LFTs, and with the history we got, which it turns out later after talking to the patient was not the correct history, like we were just told, oh, he has a history of heroin use, and he was found down, it was probably from heroin. But I probably would have gotten a Tylenol level, which wasn't done because he had elevated liver enzymes and he could have taken anything.
But if he's
Or he
doing
has Hep C if he's
recreational,
IV drug abuser too.
He actually, I don't think he was an IV drug abuser. He had no track marks anywhere. He was either really good at picking, but like we made sure because we were like, really? He's a heroin user? He didn't look like one.
So that
Percocet or something.
Like unkempt, you know, like he wasn't unkempt. He had no track marks, none of those like weird like red mark. Yeah, he just had none of that. And then we got a CT of his chest to see where that first chest tube went. And we found the pneumo on the other side that we had initially seen on the ultrasound, but you couldn't see on the chest X-ray. And yeah, you can see that first chest tube is like definitely going through lung parenchyma right there.
you can pull it out.
Yeah, so we called CT surgery and they told us to just pull it out and then leave the other one in, obviously. And then they put in a drain on the other side because of the pneumo on that